Welcome back to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Jackson of the show. This is episode 3, season 2 of the show. With that being said, the Super Bowl was Sunday. Eagles, Chiefs. It's time for me to give my reaction to the Super Bowl and some of the takeaways that I got from this year's Super Bowl. Well, with that being said, let's dive right into today's action. I'm your host, Quinn Jackson of the Life's Playbook podcast. Let's get into it. And as always, the game never ends here. The Life'sPlaybook podcast. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the 3 major takeaways that I got from this year's Super Bowl. Obviously, the Eagles come away with this one. They are the 2024 Super Bowl champions of the NFL. And with the Super Bowl now being over, that means the 2024 NFL season is officially over. And now we have to wait around 6-7 months for 2025 season. So, if you're a big football fan, this might not be the cream of the crop news you want to hear, but alas, the long wait has arrived. But there are still many important events to look forward to in the NFL, that being draft night in April and the offseason and the preseason, and what kind of interesting moves will take place in the offseason and in the preseason. So there are still some very important things, some very important events that take place before the 2025 season. So it's not over, but it is over for the time being. So let's talk about the Super Bowl that caps off the 2024 NFL season. The Eagles are the 2024 NFL champions, Super Bowl champions. They absolutely destroyed the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. If you weren't aware, if you weren't familiar, I was rocking with the Eagles to win that game, and boy was I right. Boy was I smart in rocking with the Eagles this game. They absolutely annihilated the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the box score doesn't do the game justice, but when I tell you that this was a blowout on every front, it was a blowout. I know the Chiefs scored 22 points to make it look a little more respectable. But if anybody who was watching that game from kickoff to the final few seconds, they know it was a blowout. Chiefs fans know it was a blowout the entire step of the way. And yes, I was watching the game from kickoff to the very last second. I was on my toes the entire time. I was very happy that the Eagles annihilated the Chiefs. I have absolutely no remorse towards the Chiefs whatsoever. They have their Super Bowl victories. It's time to let somebody else win the big chip. Which brings me to my 3 major takeaways that I got from this year's Super Bowl. Well, what are my 3 major takeaways? Well, the first takeaway is obviously anybody has a chance to compete and win a Super Bowl. It's not just the Chiefs' era anymore. And the Eagles showed that anyone, and I'm talking more specifically to the AFC, because the AFC is where, the Chiefs' dominance really, really takes a stand. But I'm talking more specifically to the AFC. I'm saying that it's really possible for anybody to win a Super Bowl, and it's possible to beat the Chiefs. And it is possible to blow out the Chiefs. It's just nobody was ever able to do it in the AFC. Again, I'm talking AFC specifically. Nobody was able to blow out the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's the first major takeaway. The second major takeaway I got from this Super Bowl is, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the news media and whatnot, or news media, sports media and whatnot, but the GOAT conversation is a very big and popular conversation that, every sport, if you're a fan of any sort of sport and you've been a long time watcher of any sort of sport, you know that there's always a GOAT or a certain player that's kind of dominated that sport for an extended amount of time. It's kind of, won pretty much everything there is to win in that respective sport, and you consider them the GOAT. Now, that same conversation carries to the NFL. The GOAT conversation has been something that's been talked about since the Chiefs were on the verge of three-peating, really since the Chiefs won their second Super Bowl. When Patrick Mahomes won his second Super Bowl, that's when the conversation started to grow, it started to rise. But after this Super Bowl, my second takeaway is that conversation has ended completely. Okay, maybe not completely, but it's been put on hold. We have to put the GOAT conversation on hold. Me personally, I didn't really think there was a conversation in the first place. Tom Brady is my GOAT. I watched Tom Brady's second half of his career. I was around to see him in his second dynasty, so I know how. I've seen Tom Brady. I've watched Tom Brady again from his second dynasty to the end of his career, and I've seen Patrick Mahomes up until this point. And I got to tell you, I never really thought there was a GOAT debate in the first place. Tom Brady is the GOAT. He's my GOAT. He will always be my GOAT. And this Super Bowl kind of proves that Tom Brady. It further proves that Tom Brady is the GOAT of the football world, of the NFL world. He is the GOAT. Now, I said it was on pause. I said the GOAT conversation was on pause. It's not completely over because Patrick Mahomes he's only 30 years old. He still has a lot of years left in him and a lot of football left for him to be played. So there's still time for him to possibly, get over that insurmountable 7 Super Bowl titles that Tom Brady has. There is still time. But for the time being, and after this Super Bowl and his performance, it's time to put that conversation on hold. So that's the second takeaway I got from the Super Bowl. The third takeaway I got from the Super Bowl is we got to start talking about Jalen Hurts like he's an elite quarterback because he showed that he is, he proved that he is, and he is an elite quarterback. He's one of the top 5 in the NFL. Right now, he's one of the top 5, in my opinion, and he's not 5. He's not 5. Honestly, in my opinion, I would put him second as of right now. It goes Hurts. It goes Mahomes, and then Jalen Hurts. He's not top 5. There's no way you can put a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP at the bottom 5th. It's not possible. I understand the big 3 and Lamar, Burrow, and Josh Allen. They're all part of the conversation. They're all top 5 guys too, but I just don't see how you can place Hurts below those guys when they can't get it done. And I understand Burrow got it done 4 years ago against Patrick Mahomes, but he lost his Super Bowl game. And Josh Allen and Lamar are Josh Allen and Lamar. Will they get over the hump of Patrick Mahomes? I don't know. Again, it is possible. The Super Bowl proved that it is possible to get over Patrick Mahomes, and it is possible to blow him out. But that they are ultimately going to dictate whether they make a Super Bowl or not. That's the third takeaway. We got to start talking about Jalen Hurts like he's top 5, because he is top 5, and he's not 5, in my opinion. There's no way a Super Bowl MVP and a Super Bowl champion is 5th. All right, I mean, it's not possible. It's just not possible. Yeah, he's not as flashy as Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. He doesn't really have an MVP. He doesn't have individual accolades like the rest of them do, but he's got something that the other 3 don't have, and that is a Super Bowl title and a Super Bowl MVP. Again, Mahomes is still number 1. Despite how the game went for him, and despite how his performance was, he's still the number 1 quarterback in today's NFL right now. It is what it is. But Hurts, on the other hand, he made a name for himself. He proved that he is elite. He showed that he's elite. He showed that he's a winner. Really, he's been showing he's a winner. But again, I know he's not as flashy as the other 3 guys, but he's got something that they don't have. He's been to the playoffs. Really, and since he entered the league, he's made 2 Super Bowl appearances. Won 1, lost 1. Both close game. Well, the loss was a close game, but this win was, utter dominating fashion. But he showed that he can get the job done against Patrick Mahomes. And again, I know Joe Burrow showed that he can too. But when he also had a chance at a Super Bowl title, Aaron Donald happened, and he didn't get the job done. Which is no knock against him, because I do believe that if Joe Burrow has a chance and has a good squad behind him, he can make another Super Bowl run. I do have a strong... There's still a strong hope that Joe Burrow can make a Super Bowl run if he has a good squad backing him. Again, this year he missed the playoffs, went 9-8. His team overall really wasn't up to the level that we've seen the team in years past. Again, with Josh Allen and Lamar, they both made the playoffs Lamar lost in the divisional round to Josh Allen, and Josh Allen went on to lose in the AFC Championship to Patrick Mahomes. So, those two guys, it's really up to them on whether they're going to beat Patrick Mahomes or not. Again, it is possible. The Eagles showed everybody that it is possible to not only blow out the Chiefs, but it is possible to win a Super Bowl in the Mahomes era. It's not just the Chiefs era anymore. So, with that being said, Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, he's top 5 and he ain't 5. He's got to be number 2. There's no way you can put a Super Bowl winner below guys that haven't even made the Super Bowl, excluding Joe. Excluding Joe, there's no way you can put him below Josh or Lamar. Again, I understand those two guys are way more flashier than him, arguably more athletic than him. They have the MVPs, and they got all these other cool accolades than him. But he won a Super Bowl. He got over the hump. He showed, and he dominated in that Super Bowl too. His performance was great. I think he threw for like almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He was great. He was phenomenal on all levels, running the football with his legs when Spags blitzed him. Ran the football very well, threw the football very well. Great decision making, on time throws. He proved all of that. Jalen, I don't see how Jalen Hurts is anything but top 2 right now. I don't see how you can make a valid argument right now. Now, I'm not going to give you my opinion, like my personal top 5 ranking between those 5 guys, Patrick, Josh, Lamar, Jalen, and Joe, because my opinion is as different as the next guys, and all of our rankings are different. But I am going to say that Patrick is number 1, and Josh has to be, or Josh, I keep saying Josh. Jalen Hurts is number 2. Right now, he's got to be number 2. With the Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP, there's no way he's not number 2 in the league right now. Again, those guys all have individual awards. Cool. They all have, well, except Burrow, they all have MVPs. Cool. But 2 of those guys can't get over the hump. And one of those guys did get over the hump, but he failed at his attempt when he had a chance at a Super Bowl. So you tell me, would you rather place guys that can't get over the hump over a Super Bowl MVP winner and a Super Bowl champion, or would you rather have a Super Bowl champion in the top 2 right now? You tell me. But I'm just saying, man, we got to look at Jalen Hurts at a completely different lens. We got to look at him with a different lens, not just out of respect, but out of his play style, his poise, his compassion for the game, his drive to win. I mean, this guy, again, I know he's not as flashy as every other quarterback in the league, but he showed that you don't have to be flashy. He showed that you don't have to have all these individual awards. You don't have to have, skyscraping stats, He showed that you can just be calm, cool, collected, poised, and just win the game. And winning gets you far. I understand we bash him for having super teams, and we bash him for not exactly making the great plays that we see Mahomes make, and Burrow make, and Lamar make, and Josh make. And we bash him for all those things. But I'm just going to say this. Winning gets you far in the NFL. It really does. And Jalen Hurts proved that. He proved that regardless of how well he plays, he proved that winning matters the most. And it does matter the most. Because if you don't win, you're not going anywhere. So I'm just going to say this. Jalen Hurts is a winner. I respect wholeheartedly that he's a winner. Personally, he's in my top 2 right now. Again, Mahomes is still number 1, despite how piss poorly he played, and he did play piss poorly. All right, don't let anybody tell you otherwise, that there were all these other factors. And there were other factors too as to why Mahomes played poorly. But don't let those other factors be the excuse as to why Mahomes, threw those 2 interceptions, and one of them was a pick 6. Mahomes in and of himself played terrible. Brady could never. I'm just going to say that. Brady could never play that terrible. But he did play bad. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. He played bad. Now, again, I understand there were other factors. The offensive line was almost as they were they were almost as bad, if not worse, than the Texans' offensive line. And if you've watched Texans games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're a Texans fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Texans' O-line is terrible, and that Super Bowl, the Chiefs' O-line looked exactly like, if not worse, than the Texans' O-line. So the offensive line wasn't great. The receivers weren't great. Lots of dropped passes. D-Hop dropped a wide open pass midfield. Receivers weren't great. Protection wasn't great. Coaching arguably wasn't great, both defensively and offensively. Because again, we know Spags defensively, we know Spags loves to call these all-out blitzes at the right time, and I said he was a mastermind, and he's one of the best defensive coordinators in that playoffs and probably of all time. And he still is. I'm not saying he's terrible for the way he because of the way he coached defensively in that Super Bowl, but I'm saying that he didn't exactly make the right adjustments. Jalen Hurts adjusted to the all-out blitz. When Spags would call the all-out blitz on second down, second and long, or third and long, Jalen Hurts just ran right up the middle the entire time. Every possession, every trip that he had, he ran up the middle the entire time. That was the answer to the all-out blitz. I mean, he didn't really adjust outside of that. You know what I'm saying? And then offensively, and Travis Kelce, he played piss poorly too. He barely eclipsed 50 yards. I think he only had like 3 catches that whole game. I mean, that was bad too. I mean, there were a lot of things that were not going in the Chiefs' favor. And speaking of favor, let me talk about the refs real quick. Because I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch my Super Bowl preview, but I said that in my Super Bowl preview that I think this was going to be a fairly officiated. It was going to be a fairly well officiated Super Bowl. And in my opinion, and if you've watched that Super Bowl, I think we can all agree that that was a well officiated Super Bowl. You know, there was that one big controversial call, like right off the gun in the first quarter with AJ Brown and the offensive pass interference. But other than that call, I mean, I think it was a very well officiated game for the most part. I think, we got to give the refs credit for this one at least. Nobody got hosed, nobody got none of that. I think it was a fair game. It was a fair game for the most part, I will say. So, you know, you can't say the refs helped the Eagles more than the Chiefs. You can't say the Chiefs got more help from the refs over the Eagles because for once we got to see a well officiated Super Bowl. So let's just get that out of the way right now that the refs were not a factor as to who won this game. This game was a matter of just pure dominance on all 4 levels of the football by the Philadelphia Eagles. The only thing that the Chiefs did well that I saw and that we all saw really that night was they stopped the run. Saquon didn't really get involved. I was a little upset that he didn't get involved. I thought he was going to have a touchdown or two. I thought he would run for like 100 yards, but he ran given what the defense was showing him. He tried given what the defense was showing him. So I still give him props for trying at least. I knew they were going to come in game planning for Saquon, and I think we all knew they were going to come in game planning for Saquon. So props to him nonetheless for going out there and at least trying, given what the Chiefs defense was giving him. But I still think he should have gotten at least a touchdown, at least one to kind of get him involved too. You know what I mean? But props to the Chiefs defense at least for stopping that. Other than that, stopping the run, they were just terrible on all 4 levels of the football. They weren't good. The Chiefs in general just weren't good at all. The Eagles, they were the more talented team, arguably the better coached team that night. Better defensive team, better offensive team. Special teams, they had a lot of penalties, but special teams even went well for them too. Despite all the penalties that they got during special teams possessions. But other than that, the Eagles pretty much dominated on all 3 levels of the football. And I got to tell you, Brady could never, man. Brady could never. But again, I never really thought that there was a GOAT debate. I think it's kind of dumb that there is a GOAT debate for the NFL because 7 is more than 3. You know what I'm saying? 7 is more than 3, and I think again, this Super Bowl really solidifies that Brady is the GOAT of the NFL. Brady is the GOAT. I'm not saying Mahomes has no shot now of catching up to Brady. He still does because he's still a fairly young player. Still a lot of football left to be played for him. And, he could chase a couple more Super Bowl rings. Who knows? He could eventually come up quick at the end of his career and, surpass Brady. And I'm all for it. But this Super Bowl definitely delayed that conversation. It definitely put that conversation on a huge hold. And, we got to start looking at Mahomes in a slightly different lens now. He got blown out. Brady never got blown out in a Super Bowl. And when he was getting blown out in the Super Bowl against the Falcons, we saw what he did. He came back, and they won the game. So I'm just saying that we got to start looking at Mahomes a little bit differently. I'm not saying he's trash. I'm not saying he's never going to be a GOAT, because he will be a GOAT. He will be one of the greatest quarterbacks to touch a football by the end of his career. But is he better than Brady? I think not. I think all of us as, football fans, I think we can safely say for now that Brady is the undisputed GOAT, as he always was and as he always will be. But, I'm just saying, getting blown out like that, again, I know the overall score, shows differently, but if you watch that game from kickoff to the final knee, it was a blowout on all fronts. It was a blowout. That defense absolutely ate Kansas City's offense, like on all levels. They just completely smothered that offensive line for Kansas City. They were nowhere to be found. It was crazy. 2 back-to-back sacks, 1 drive, and then a pick. And then the next offensive drive later for the Chiefs, same thing. 2 back-to-back sacks, and then another pick for a pick 6. That's crazy. You don't expect to see that out of the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't expect Travis Kelce to not get involved out of the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't expect Mahomes to be out of sync, out of rhythm, out of poise. He was frustrated. He was upset. His line was pretty much non-existent. And you don't expect to see any of that watching the Chiefs. Now, I understand that, all the games up until this point, the Chiefs, they've won those games in nail biters. Some of those games you could argue they should have lost. But I think that the Eagles, they saw that and they said, well, not against us. You're not gonna make this a close game against us. We're not going to allow you to play your style of football. And the Chiefs' style of football is keep the game close, stay on schedule, keep Mahomes in a rhythm, and they win the game. The Eagles walked into Caesar Superdome and said, no, we're not playing that football. We're not playing that football. We're playing our football, which is run up the numbers. And that's exactly what they did. They ran up the numbers. The Chiefs just couldn't compete. Really, when it got to 30 to 0, 30 to 0, 24 to 0, that's when things really got out of hand. But they just ran up the numbers all night long. It's crazy because you don't expect to see any of this, any of this kind of stuff, the Chiefs. You expect to see a clean offense, a clean defense, a well-coached team. And that just, that didn't even look like, that looked like when the Chiefs played the Bucs in the Super Bowl, when Tom Brady's last Super Bowl that he won, and he blew out Patrick Mahomes. This Super Bowl, this year, looked exactly like that one. Mahomes was just out of sync, out of rhythm, no protection, receivers non-existent, and, the defense was the defense. They tried. They had a good run. They had a good run defense. I'll say that. They limited Saquon. I'll say that. They did their job, per se. But outside of, stopping Saquon, they were pretty much non-existent. It was crazy. It was crazy. I can't say that. Now, looking at, the overall score of the game, what does this mean for the future of the NFL? What does this Super Bowl mean? Well, again, I said my first takeaway was any team, specifically in the AFC, I'm talking AFC here, any team has a chance to win a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of, are you going to beat Mahomes or not? If you beat Mahomes, you can get to a Super Bowl, and it is possible to beat him. The Eagles exposed a lot of things about the Chiefs during that Super Bowl. A lot of things. A lot of weaknesses that I think a lot of NFL teams can really use and capitalize off of. But it's just a matter of, can they build the team to beat the Chiefs, and will they beat the Chiefs? Again, guys like Lamar and Josh, they have yet to prove they can do it. They're MVP caliber players, sure. They got their awards, sure. But at the end of the day, the number of MVPs that they rack up is not going to mean much if you can't win a Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that MVPs don't matter to your resume, because they do, and they help your resume very much. But if all you can get is MVPs and whatnot, and you have no Super Bowl to show for, I don't know. I mean, it's really not gonna matter a whole lot if you don't have at least one chip. If you don't have at least one chip on that resume, it might not mean much. Shows you were an outstanding player, sure. Shows you were an MVP player your entire career, but that Super Bowl really helps elevate you to the next level. And Jalen Hurts, again, I can't stress it enough. We got to start looking at him much differently now, much differently. He's not just a winner now. He's a Super Bowl winner. And I think he's going to have this taste in his mouth for a long time, and probably forever. I don't think this will be the last Super Bowl that Jalen Hurts wins. I think he might win one more, maybe two more, maybe. If the Eagles are really that destined, if they're really that good, he could win one more, if not two more. But he's earned the respect of the people. He's earned the respect of the media. He's earned my respect. But we got to start looking at him much, much differently now. Much, much differently. He's not just a winner. He's a Super Bowl champ. He's a Super Bowl winner. And I think right now, personally, for me, he's got to be above Joe, Josh, and Lamar. He's got to be above those guys, because he has something that they don't. And that is a Super Bowl win and a Super Bowl MVP. Again, he played phenomenal. He played phenomenal. I mean, it was almost like Saquon really wasn't needed that game to win that game. He just needed Smith and A.J. Brown. That's it. He just needed those two guys and the offensive line to hold up their end of the deal, which they did all night long, and they would have won that game without Saquon. Saquon, honestly, probably didn't even need to suit up. He could have just watched on the sidelines, and they probably still would have dominated the Chiefs in the fashion that they did. But Jalen Hurts is that dude. He is that dude, and we got to start putting respect on his name, and we got to start looking at him like he's an elite quarterback, because he is an elite quarterback. I don't know why it really took this long. From a media standpoint, I don't know why it took this long to consider him an elite quarterback. He's got the history, he's got the resume that shows he's elite. Again, he doesn't have the awards like Josh and Joe and Lamar do, but he's got the wins and he's got the Super Bowl win. So you tell me where Jalen, you tell me where Jalen Hurts stands between Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Burrow. You tell me where he stands, because I'm going to tell you right now, for me, he's not top 5. He's not bottom 5th. He's top 2. He's 2 behind Mahomes. Because, again, Mahomes is still the best right now, despite how poorly he played. He's still the best right now. But for me, he's top 2. That Super Bowl, it outweighs all of the other guys. It outweighs all of Lamar's MVPs. It outweighs Josh's MVP. And it outweighs Joe Burrow, because he actually won his Super Bowl. Again, not hating on Joe, because Joe showed that when he has a chance, he can also beat Mahomes, and he can also get to a Super Bowl. He just needs to have the right team to do that with. But Hurts's Super Bowl win outweighs all of that stuff, in my opinion. Until one of those other 3 guys wins a Super Bowl, I don't think I can any higher above Jalen Hurts. I just don't think I can do that. Until one of those guys wins a Super Bowl, I don't think I can do that. I'm not saying those 3 guys are never going to win a Super Bowl, because they are all capable of doing so. They just got to prove it now. They got to prove that they can do it. They got to prove, Joe, you got to prove you can win in a Super Bowl setting. You can get there. We know you can get there. With the right team, we know you can get there. Now you got to win it. Lamar, you got to prove you can beat Mahomes in the playoffs and get there. Allen, same thing. You got to prove you can beat Mahomes and get there. But I think he's top two right now. He's top two right now. That's his Super Bowl. It outweighs everything that the other guys have done up until this point. It just does. And I don't know how it doesn't. And I mean, unless you're a real stickler about Jalen Hurts and who he is, I don't see how he's not top two right now in the league. He's top five, yes. He is top five. But there's no way he's fifth. There's no way he's fifth. I just don't see it. But here we are. 2024 NFL season is over. Now we have to wait about 6-7 months for the 2025 NFL season. Again, I'm excited to see all the moves in the offseason. I'm excited to see all the moves in the preseason. I'm a Browns fan, so personally, I hope Miles can stay and, we can work something out with him. I understand if he leaves because, the Browns are the Browns. But I'm excited for draft night. I'm excited to see who we draft. But this has been episode 3, season 2 of the Life's Playbook podcast. Again, if you didn't see my announcement on my previous episode, a co-host has been found and he will be joining the show within 2 weeks from now. So stay tuned for his debut episode as well as other episodes that I will be catching up on and dropping. So with that being said, that has been my reaction to the Super Bowl. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of, what you guys thought of this Super Bowl, and as well as where Jalen Hurts stands in your guys' rankings. Because again, everybody's rankings are different. Everybody's opinions are different. That's why I didn't give mine out. But let me know where you stand. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Greatly appreciated. And as always, the game never ends here at the Life'sPlaybook podcast. I will catch you guys Thursday for season 2, episode 4. Peace out.